So let me just maximize this, and I think you guys can, whoops. Oh my gosh, I'm not trying to make it do that so many times. I'm just trying to get it where I like it. Okay, and the other thing I would say that you can do if you want is within Zoom, you can kind of take your little mouse and drag the button over. So if you want to still see the gallery view on the right side and then see the slide on the left side, you can still click on that gallery view in your upper right-hand corner if you still want to be able to see everybody's faces, and then also still see the slides, because the slides, honestly, they're a support, but they're not critical. So if the slides are minimized, I think that's okay. So I am going to make sure and open my chat panel back up. But what I wanted to do, and I think this is so funny because Kevin, you asked this question of people just a little while ago, like, hey, how's everybody doing? And I think that was kind of during what our club normally does as health and happiness. But I really would like to, because of the topic around positivity in times of uncontrollable change, I would love to just take a pulse on everybody, how everybody's feeling. So if you're willing to, just type in the chat, like, I'm great, I'm stressed, I'm sad, I'm whatever. Like, let me just get a pulse on how the group is doing in this kind of Corona world that we're living in. Vanessa's feeling good. And Vanessa has an adorable baby too.
Yes.
Okay, missing hugs. Joy, excited for the weekend. Natalia, doing good. Vicky, woohoo, feeling awesome. Doing good, busy but good. Yeah, and Brad, that's a great point. Some people are finding in this time that, you know, they're busier than ever, and others are finding way more stillness than they ever have had before, and boredom, and wondering what they're going to do, and trying to keep their kids occupied. Yeah, John says he wants to be social again, and I get it. And John, it's so good to see you. Yeah, I'm getting some private messages too. Some days fantastic, some okay. It's a roller coaster. What I have found is I've engaged with teams and businesses around this. A lot of people talk about those feelings of up and down. Like one day you're doing great and you're practicing gratitude and you feel good and everything's awesome. And then the next day you kind of hit a wall. And even the leaders who are fueling their teams and fueling their families and being positive all the time, sometimes they eventually hit a wall and they need someone to fuel them and fill them up. So it's okay to be a little bit of both. It's kind of okay to be grateful and anxious at the same time, because they both exist. And I will say, I want to make sure I got all these comments. Yeah, some awesome, yeah, gratitude. Quanta, is that your name, Quanta? Can't see all.
Yes, yes.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
Okay, yep, and I'm missing hugs for sure. Missing being with everybody, I get it. I mean, it's like, we're connecting and we're trying to look at each other and connect in this way, but it is hard that we can't always be together. I will say I've seen a lot more creativity around getting together. I'm seeing more and more socially distanced driveway things, and our club is even talking about going to a parking lot and parking, you know, several parking spaces away so we can actually see each other in person. So, and one of our club members actually had a drive-in wedding this past weekend, and that was something to behold, but people are making the best of it for sure. And I wanted to share with you, I was thinking about, again, I speak about all things positivity, and there are lots of benefits of positivity in general, but I wanted to really think about it in the context of the time that we're sitting in right now. And I picked out 3 or 4 really that I've circled in, or I've outlined in yellow, and I'm going to outline them now. One is positive leaders or positive people are better able to make decisions under pressure, which I know we're all under probably more pressure than usual. So wouldn't it be great if by being positive, we can make better decisions? Positive people who regularly express positive emotions are more resilient when facing stress, challenges, and adversity. And the key word there is regularly expressed. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to be positive today, but I'll be negative all the rest of the days. It's regularly expressing positivity. Positive people are able to maintain a broader perspective and see the big picture so we can focus on solutions, whereas negative people have a narrower perspective and tend to focus just on the problems. Oh, is it possible to make the text bigger? Let's see if we can just do that. How's that? Okay. And then last but not least, positive thoughts and emotions counter the negative effects of stress. So you cannot actually, it's scientifically proven that you cannot be thankful and stressed at the same time. And that's really like in the same moment. I understand that in this time period, we can certainly be both, but in the same moment, you can't be stressed and thankful. So how do you counteract the effects of stress with positive thoughts? Okay. So how many, and I'm going to look, I can't see everyone and see my slide at the same time, but I can see a good chunk. I can see about 12 of you. Has anyone on this Zoom heard the story of the carrot, the egg, and the coffee bean? Vicky? Okay, mostly no. I see mostly head nods no. I'm going to look through. No, okay, good. So that's good. So what happens to a carrot? So let's imagine this Corona world as a giant pot of boiling water. And we're going to put a few things in our pot of boiling water. So first, when we put a carrot into a pot of boiling water, what happens to the carrot? Type it in the chat. What happens to the carrot when you put it in a pot of boiling water? It does cook. Yes, it does cook. But what, yes, it gets soft and mushy, right? It softens and it kind of starts to disintegrate when it goes into the pot of boiling water, right? And then what happens to an egg when it goes into the pot of boiling water? It hardens. Yeah, it hardens. So when it goes into that boiling water environment, it started out soft and malleable in the center, and then it gets hard and maybe sometimes bitter, right? But what happens to a coffee bean when it goes into a pot of boiling water? It awakens, it becomes delicious, it gets in me, it becomes tasty, it makes me happy. And most importantly, as you can see what Vicky said in the chat is, it transforms its environment. So instead, Wally says it becomes wonderful. But really, instead of letting the environment transform you, so in this case of all the stress that's happening around Corona, instead of letting it soften you and make you weak and mushy and disintegrate, or letting it harden you and letting you become bitter and grumpy and tough on the exterior and the interior, let yourself actually transform the environment that you're in. So as a coffee bean, if you choose personally to become a coffee bean, you can transform the environment to something better and more fantastic than it already is. And it starts with you, and it goes from the inside out. There's a short story that I'll tell about a gentleman that is kind of connected to John through the writing of a book around a little fable called The Coffee Bean around this story. And he learned about this story of the carrot, the egg, and the coffee bean while he was in prison. And he had a wonderful life, very privileged, football star, scholarship to college, etc. And he got mixed up into drugs and got addicted and started robbing houses, and he ended up in jail. And this is where he met another gentleman in jail who told him this story about the carrot, the egg, and the coffee bean, and encouraged him, his name is Damon, and encouraged him to start changing himself from the inside out and then start positively influencing the people around him in prison. And he said, Damon, that's the only way you're going to get through prison. This is the ultimate pot of boiling water. And if you can start to change yourself and positively impact the people around you, you can become a coffee bean even in prison, which is the worst environment you can ever imagine. And he did, and he started changing himself, and he started positively impacting people in the prison. And he actually got out of prison early and now is speaking and writing, and he's on a pro bono tour of every single prison in Texas, talking about the coffee bean and how you can change yourself from the inside out. So it's really cool that we can all be coffee beans. Yeah, I'm reading Quantic's comment. He says, you have to grind it first. That can also be philosophical too. It gets its flavor when it goes through the grinder. Okay, yeah, and that's the adversity that we're all facing, right? So we grind the coffee beans and then they can transform. So yeah, excellent point. I love that. So oops, hold on. I'm gonna try to move this forward. Hold on, I've got too many screens going here. This doesn't seem like it wants to move forward. Hang on one second. Yeah, my picture is moving instead of my slide. Okay, there we go. Has anyone besides Vicki, has anyone heard of this formula, E plus P equals O? I'm looking. If you have any ideas. Nope, I see mostly no. So this formula stands for events plus your perception of those events equals the outcome. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One example, you can just use this for the really simple things in life. Like, remember when we used to actually commute to the office? And one day on our commute, maybe we're doing great and we're listening to a podcast or great music or talking to friends and everything's great. And we get to the office and we feel good and we start our day in a great way. But maybe other days we are perceiving the traffic that we're sitting in as just awful and it's grinding and grating on us and we have road rage. And then we get to the office and that outcome is a really negative, tough start to the day. So this works for really little things, but it works for bigger things too. And I'll give you an example from my life personally. Last year I was going through a breast cancer experience, and one day I was going in, before chemotherapy, I was going in to have what's called a port surgically implanted, and I wasn't feeling very positive that day. And I was getting kind of down and a little bit grumpy, and the nurse came to put my IV in, and I was just kind of like, ugh, you know, whatever, just get it done. And she said to me, "You have great veins." And I was like, okay, well, yes, I do. I have great veins. Thank you for that. But then literally 2 seconds later, she went to the person in the next bay over to do his IV. And he said, "Oh my gosh, this hurts so bad. You always have to stick me so many times. I can't stand this. This is awful." And I was like, okay, now I know what I'm going to be. Now I'm going to change my perception of this thing that is not that big of a deal. And I'm just going to get this procedure done with, and I'm going to be fine. And I have great veins. And it's sometimes on the harder days, you just have to be grateful for anything. And in that day, that perception of having great veins really just changed the outcome of that whole situation for me. So you can just really think about how you're perceiving the things that are happening to you, because it can change your mind. And this feeds right into your perspective. So how you see the world determines the world you see. And especially what we're going through right now. So there are so many hardships and so many people are struggling. And if you turn on the news cycle, you can get yourself, and you leave it on too long, you can get yourself into something that is really difficult and challenging for your mind. But what I would encourage you to do is look for some other things as well. And sometimes you have to open your eyes and look around for these things. But if you look, I guarantee you will find things like innovation that you have never seen before. Companies and manufacturers that didn't know how to make a ventilator 4 weeks ago are making ventilators. People everywhere are sewing masks and donating masks and matching up restaurant hardships with healthcare worker hunger and matching up beautiful meals coming together. And there's so much innovation and kindness and creativity coming out of something like this, but you have to open your eyes and look for it. And that's where that perspective is. We all get to choose. And there were so many, those quotes at the beginning were just so wonderful from John and from Kevin, those quotes at the beginning. You guys are already here and you're already talking about finding the good and looking for the good, but you can, and you can find it, but you have to choose what you're going to see. And that's why I love this picture, because you can choose what's kind of in your frame and you can find something great. And you also have to be able to control your energy when people are around you. And I love this quote from Gandhi, and it says, I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. And once again, your positivity needs to be greater. You almost have to put a force field around yourself in a time like this, because people are coming at you like, this sucks, this is too hard, I miss this, you know, all the negativity and complaining. But you have to not let those people walk through your mind with your dirty feet. And you have to control your own mindset and find a way to be more positive than anyone else around you, and be able to counteract some of the negativity with maybe something that you're grateful for instead. And on that note, I want to really talk about the power of gratitude. And actually, by a show of hands, how many, because I've already heard it mentioned a couple times, how many people in this club have a regular gratitude practice? Okay, I see a couple hands. Anyone who has a regular gratitude practice, type it in the chat. What is it? What are some of your gratitude practices? Or better yet, for even more fun, let's type in, what are you grateful for right now? Why don't you type in, what's something that you're grateful for right now? Type it in the chat. Daily walks with my dog. Every moment, Quanta, my husband. My health. Oh my gosh, what a time to be grateful for your health. Every night, it's okay, that's such a great example. Every night before bed, closing out the day with everything that you're grateful for. That is such a wonderful way to practice it, and it's a great way to relax yourself and go into sleep, right? Friends and family, my friends, no one, I don't know what SH is, but no one getting the virus. I'm grateful for my friends, the blue sky. You know, that's such a great one. If you can't find anything, if you're having your worst possible day, start with, I'm grateful for the breath in my lungs and the heart beating in my body. And then start looking around. And again, you can find the blue sky, especially living in Charlotte. Oh my gosh, we've been so lucky. I've talked to so many people who are in snow and blizzards and cold weather and everything else, but we can be grateful for the beauty that's all around us. The opportunity to serve, yes, of course, surrounded by beauty, loving others. When I wake up, I hear the birds and I thank them for their morning concert. Yes, I mean, and the thing about it is, when we're not slowed down like we are right now, many of us are slowed down. I realize not everybody is slowed down, but for so many of us who are slowed down, it's such a wonderful time to have that extra opportunity to pause and look around and see what's actually happening around us. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing and participating in the chat. But the point about gratitude is it's a practice. So it's not something that you do once and you're like, okay, I'm good. I practice my gratitude. I don't have to do that anymore. It's just like Kay articulated, that she does it at night before she goes to bed. It's a practice. So whether you use a gratitude journal and write it down every day, whether you say it before you go to bed at night, whether you pray or meditate, that's a wonderful way to practice gratitude. John Gordon, who I work with, he does a gratitude walk every day. You can really do anything. Yeah, Vicki just said on her runs, you can do it any way you want as long as you do it and you repeat it and you do it over and over and over again, because that goes back to some of the things we were talking about at the beginning around positive mindsets, and that helps you build that resilience and that ability to overcome stress and some of these things that we're going through by practicing gratitude, because you're actually rewiring your brain to be more positive, because what you practice grows stronger. So the more you practice it, the more your brain actually naturally becomes more positive. Another thing that you can do in this time where there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of stress, and especially for those of us working in businesses and running companies and running teams, a lot of people are like, well, what do we do now? Our plan just got blown up. Our numbers are blown up. Our people, what about we're laying off people? How do we manage this? What are we going to do? Where do we go from here? It's really important right now for you personally, also your family and your team, to create and share some kind of a vision for the future. So, and now your future vision horizon might be a little shorter than it normally would be. So maybe in the past, your vision was always a 12-month or a 3-year or a 5-year strategic plan. Maybe now your vision is shortened. Maybe it's a quarterly plan or whatever it is. But even if it's shorter, create and share a vision with the people around you. Give them a North Star to be striving for, so then you can start working toward that. Because what stresses people out the most is all that uncertainty and not knowing. But if you can provide some kind of a vision, even if it's short term, it gives them something to work toward, knowing that there's still going to be a lot of change and there's still going to be a lot of uncertainty, but here's where we're going to go, and we're going to do this first, and we're going to do this next, and we're going to do this next, and we have to pivot. If we have to pivot, we'll create a new vision. But just giving something for people to really strive for. And then also, when you think about the future, when you look at these two words, and I say faith over fear, and I'm not necessarily talking about religious faith, I'm just talking about faith as something in the future. Both of these words sit in the future, but the word faith believes in a positive future, and fear believes in a negative future. So for you, choosing to believe that tomorrow is going to be better than today. And that's what I mean by faith. So tomorrow is going to be better than today. And the next day is going to be better than tomorrow. And knowing and believing that each day is going to be better than the last. Another huge way to help yourself and the people around you be positive is to be the energy that you want to attract. Your energy is contagious. And even though we're not around each other live and in person, you're still spreading your energy to the people around you. And so even on this Zoom call, I hope you're catching my energy. But what I'm trying to give you is I want to be a big dose of vitamin C for you. I don't want to be spreading the coronavirus around, right? I want to be spreading positivity. And so if I want positivity, I have to put it out there to the people around me. And truly, this goes for not only your clubs and the people you serve and your teams, but it's also your family. My kids are, especially since I do this work, my kids are the first ones to call me out when I am being an energy vampire. Like, hey, Mom, you're being an energy vampire. Aren't you supposed to be the positivity one? Like, what are you doing? But they're right. And when I'm not bringing them my best, then they're not going to give me their best. And so it starts with us. We have to decide what kind of energy we want coming back to us, and we have to put it out into the world. It's the law of attraction. If you ever heard about the law of attraction, you put out what you want to get back. So be the energy that you want to attract. And within all this, there is a huge power in encouragement and encouraging the people around you. Sometimes we think that just because somebody's showing up smiling and happy on our weekly Zoom call or whatever it is, that they're doing just fine, but maybe they're not doing just fine. And I think it's really important to intentionally encourage people and say, you've got this, and I believe in you, and how are you doing? And I love seeing your smile on Friday mornings, or whatever it is. But there's something about encouraging people. And even when you listen what's happening with your club on these calls, and if there's someone you can circle back with afterwards based on something that they said, do that, and just drop somebody a text or an email or a phone call and give them those words of encouragement, because you never know what kind of a difference you can make for people with just a few simple words of saying, I believe in you, I've got your back, I love you, I care for you. So whenever you can, encourage others. And we do some exercises around encouragement in a bunch of our trainings. And every time we do it, I ask people, what felt better, giving encouragement or receiving encouragement? And almost always people say giving it. Giving it feels as good or better than receiving it. And it's sort of like when we as Rotarians serve others. It feels so good for us to serve, even though we know it feels wonderful for the people who are receiving our efforts. And I want to leave you, oh, you know what? Sorry, one more before the last slide. I wanted to talk about these 4 C's just really quickly, and I will be mindful of the time, Jenny. But these 4 C's are really important, especially during a time like this. And they are communication, connection, commitment, and care. And of all of them, communication now more than ever is so important because of all the uncertainty and stress and change every day in the news cycle. So if you're running a team or a family or whatever, be sure that you're communicating early and often and in multiple modes about what's happening. And sometimes you don't know all the answers, but it's okay to say to the people around you, I don't know all the answers, but I want you to know that this is what we're working on this week. And I'll touch base with you again next week, and I'll give you another update on how we're doing and what our progress is toward this. And then you check in again, and then you check in again, and then you check in again. Because what happens with communication is if there's a void, negativity fills it, and people make up their own stories. So be sure in this time to communicate more than ever. Of course, we've been talking about finding ways to connect, the second C. And this is one of them, doing these Zoom calls and finding ways to connect with each other, getting creative, doing driveway parties, doing parking lot parties, doing drive-in weddings, doing birthday parades and beeping and signs in your car, whatever it is, whatever you need to do to build connection during this time. And then showing people your commitment. Commitment is all about we, the collective we versus me, caring only about me. Commitment is showing that I care more about you than I care about myself. And then last but not least, just showing people that you care and finding ways to show you care, even if we can't hug each other and be with each other live. And then I want to leave you with 4 things. And I think these 4 are really important, and they've helped me kind of stay strong during this time. And here they are. The first one is, this too shall pass. I think sometimes when you're in a time like this and it gets really hard and it starts to feel long, like I think right now it's starting to feel really long. I heard on the Today Show yesterday morning, I heard Savannah Guthrie say something like, yeah, it's April 65th, like everything feels forever, and it feels so long because we've been sitting in this and we've been home and we haven't been able to socialize with people, but this will pass. And for me, I think about my own life. A year ago, I was sitting in the chemo chair, and now I'm strong and healthy. And yes, I'm sitting here in this Corona situation, but I'm strong and healthy. But then I look forward and I go, okay, well, what's next year going to be? I mean, it's going to be amazing. No more C words, but really, this will pass, and we will look back on this and we will find the blessings that came out of this, because with any struggle, there are blessings. The second thing is feel it and then find a way forward. And what I mean by feel it is, don't squish down the feelings I'm fine. Don't squish it down, feel the feelings. And if you're sad, reach out for support, talk about it, journal about it, whatever you need to do, and then find a way forward. So start moving, taking some kind of action to find a way forward. Take a walk, phone a friend, FaceTime somebody, do whatever you need to do to move forward, but feel it first so you can at least process those emotions, because there are a lot of emotions that we're all feeling right now. Number 3, control what you can control. And of course, we can't control all the things that are happening in the world, but we can control who we bring to the people around us. We can control which version of ourselves that we bring. We can control the way we serve and the way we engage with others and the things that we do. And really, we can control our attitude and our actions. And the 4th one is be a light. And when I say be a light, I really just mean find ways to make a difference for others. And that is what we as Rotarians do. We bring light to others all the time. And it's just how we do what we do. But you can do this even when you can't physically engage with others. You can still make a difference. And it's sometimes like the littlest things. Like my daughter and I painted a bunch of kindness rocks last week, and we put them all over the neighborhood. And I just randomly started seeing people post in my neighborhood Facebook group, oh my gosh, I'm finding all these little rocks. These are so cool. My kids and I look for them every night. And they didn't know who was doing rocks, and it turned out to be us, but people started piling on of what a difference those, just something so ridiculously small, what a difference that could make for them. So it doesn't take a lot of effort to be a light for others. And I know we all have our special gifts and talents that we bring. So figure out what your special gift is and use that to be a light for others. So having said that, it's 12:28. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to visit your club today and be a part of this. I love it so much. And I hope to meet as many of you as possible in the future in person.
Yes, or a driveway.
Or a driveway.